Welcome, welcome, Inspired Hive podcast community. This is another episode conversation between me and you, helping you move through your stuck or sticky times. I've been having these conversations with more and more folks this past few weeks of feeling they are kind of burdened down or stuck and trying to figure out how to take that next step or how to move forward towards their goals. And I think it's a really helpful reminder that it's not feeling motivation that gets us out of these stagnant places or times. It's actually doing something, taking some action, even when, and actually most importantly, while we're scared to take that action. A recent local business club meeting, I was really inspired by the comments and things that my colleagues were sharing in terms of what entrepreneurial events they had coming up or current business plans that they were working on. And one member expressed that she's still coming to business club meetings, even though she's felt that she hasn't made a lot of progress in terms of starting her business. That some of those things felt daunting, and some of the aspects of launching the business aspect of what she is excited to do, that felt really scary. Yeah, I'm so thrilled that she is attending the meetings and taking in the collaboration and collegiality that we have in our group. But I also recognize this is such a common experience. These are folks who have amazing things to share, amazing services to offer, and skills that can really help others be better and do better in their worlds. Yet, the things that we're training these young professionals to do does not also include the business side of these experiences. And I think it's just such an important component of both our business and being able to do the work we want to do. It's an important part of even leadership, of taking on roles where we may be making decisions about finances or business matters for an organization. And without having any experience with that, we can feel really stuck. And so I wanted to really focus this episode on this common experience where we can feel not confident in what even that next step is, or we can feel like maybe we're not believing we could do it, or we don't have the motivation for whatever that next component of our journey into business or into leadership might be. Unless you've been connected with someone in a business-minded community or a leadership community who's willing to really mentor or share all those how-tos, it is really difficult to bring this aspect into building your business or growing your leadership tools and skill sets. If we personally don't see the possibility of how we can take action on the next steps to lead ourselves through that journey of starting a business or entrepreneurial program, or learning in the next part of our leadership development, we really can feel we're not really making progress. I want to emphasize, if you are continuing to show up to learn about this or to hear from others or to network with that community, that's progress. That is taking steps to keep that connection alive. But I also think it's important to think about, what can we do? How can we overcome the barrier that we experience within ourselves? How can we develop that self-leadership component that helps us lean into the fear? And there's always things we can learn in terms of, well, essentially getting out of our own way. Most oftentimes when we feel this stuckness, it has not much to do with everything on the outside, the external things. It has way more to do with our mindset, our experience internally of our belief in what we're capable of, or who we know that we might be able to ask for help during those kinds of times. So I want you to take a moment while we're having this conversation to really just pause and think about what you might be feeling stuck about. What area of your business, of your leadership, what area of that might you be feeling stuck in? And this is a time of year where there's a lot of business items that will come up. We've got taxes, we've got business renewals, we've got planning for aims and quarters down the road, maybe ideas about whether or not to throw our name in a hat for a leadership position, or simply where even to begin with a whole host of things that might have to do with launching our business. It can be scary to think about this, but taking just a few moments to pause and jot a few notes down. Feel free to pause the episode if you need. I'll be right here when your thoughts return to thinking about what is next. And I want you to simply take a deep breath. Allow this seemingly small action of spending a moment thinking about this, of jotting it down, and with this breath, just let that pass. And I want to plant this seed that by doing just this simple step, that you may have actually accomplished the very next thing you needed to do to move through that stuck part. You've just identified one area that you could move forward by focusing on. And that means you do actually know some aspects of how or what is next. That if you can come up with this list, there's some belief in there of knowing the process of moving forward. And I think that's often the key. We can feel we know, but then what? And I want to go through a few things with you. I want you to think about what that is that you wrote down, and I want you to break it down even further into steps or parts of what that could look like. You could think of them maybe as branches of a tree that you might be climbing. You could think about this as maybe a topic web of things that are maybe a bit unrelated, but they're all part of that big focus. And one example of this might be I have to file to get a business license. Okay, where would you go? What information do you need? How do you go about it? Is it online? Is it in paper? What does it cost? These are all little parts of that puzzle. The idea here is maybe there's some parts of this you don't know, but likely there are even aspects to that that can become the clues for what to do next. So, I don't know if I need to get a lawyer for this. Well, that can be an item. All of these little thoughts and ideas that you may have jotted down related to that bigger topic can become a step, could become a chain of steps. The point of this exercise that we're working on here is guiding you to realize there is a lot of things that can go on the action list that you could take action on to get out of your own way. What I mean by that is these are all pieces of that puzzle. They're all bricks in that foundation that don't have to necessarily be done in order. There might not be an order, but if you can tackle one at a time, if you can check one of those small items off your list, how good that can feel, even when you're not feeling most motivated to tackle that really big goal. The thing I recommend that you do when you're looking at these items is breaking them down into steps that are easy to do. It should be very single oriented step. I can look up this information. I could call and get this information. These are all actionable items that could be done very quickly, that could be done without talking yourself out of doing it. And it may seem silly to break everything down into such small pieces, yet that takes away the excuses and it gives you a path forward. Having a mindset of how to break down the components of the things that seem like barriers is one of the tools that can help you navigate these sticky wicket times. I want to ask you to identify one of those things that you wrote down as the item that you can take away from today's episode and take action on. What is it that moved you forward today? As always, I'm going to end this podcast with a quote. And the quote I've selected today is from Maya Angelou. She said, "The real difficulty is to overcome how you think about yourself." And today's episode, I hope that you are realizing you have a lot within you of knowing how and what your next steps are. And you don't need the motivation to take action on those steps. You just need to go and do it.
So grateful you listened to this episode of the Inspired Hive podcast. Be sure to follow me on social media at Inspired Hive Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I can't wait to see you back here for our next episode, and as always, remember to live inspired.